Hey, hey, hey. Thanks again for pressing play and welcome once again to another edition of the Suns Jam Session podcast, which is also being streamed over on SunsGeek's channel. We are once again doing the simulcast thing where we both have a lot to talk about. I know that you and Matthew did a great job talking after the Indiana Pacers game, and I listened back to that podcast. I was a little jealous, Suns Geek, because I know you've moved back to the Valley, and it's got to be nice for you to watch Phoenix Suns games on Phoenix Suns time zones once again, and watching you two go back and forth. I'm like, you know what, Matthew, you take the night off. I want to talk to Brandon. So, Suns Geek, how you doing, man?
Oh, man, I'm absolutely fantastic, man. Thank you so much for having me and letting me co-stream this live on both channels. And just thankful to be back in the Valley. And just thankful that the Phoenix Suns actually got a win.
It's about
They actually
time.
won back.
I don't know if that's my internet or yours. Can you hear me? Let me know, Jamsters. I think I lost Suns Geek. Stream is off. Is it him or is it me, Hans Gruber? Can you hear me? Well, if you're listening, you have no idea what's going on. But Suns Geek will figure out the technical side. I'm here to talk to you, talk about everything that's going on with the Phoenix Suns. So appreciate you. Okay, I'm good. Thank you, Suns Fever, for letting me know. So the show can go on. Yeah, I'm with Eddie Yee here in the chat. Yay, we won. Wow. But yeah, a lot to talk about in this game against the Philadelphia 76ers. One, that the Suns won because we haven't won since Christmas. It's been a while since we've won a basketball game. And there's reasons why we won this one. Decisions were made. So we're going to talk about those decisions and much more right here on the Suns Jam Session podcast, which is also co-streaming on Suns Geek channel, even though Suns Geek got kicked off the internet or something. I don't know what he's doing over there. But let's go ahead and let's kick off this bad boy. Pop him if you got him. And I know it's a new intro, but it's a new year, new me. So let's listen to that new intro again. That's right, Suns fans. We actually won a basketball game, 16-18 now on the season as the Phoenix Suns beat the Philadelphia 76ers by a final score of 109-99. Suns Geek is back. Mic check. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I think so. Can you hear me? I feel like
absolutely.
I'm lagging over here. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, it's the old Phoenix internet. Welcome back to the Valley. The internet
Let's
still
go.
sucks here. But I got a question for you.
Matthew, I've got to ask.
So, Suns Geek, I got to ask. A lot of hype coming into this game. A decision was made yesterday. I know that you put a reaction video out on your YouTube channel. If you guys don't follow Suns Geek, just go to youtube.com/SunsGeek and you're going to find his channel. But a great reaction video talking about the decision made by Mike Budenholzer to bench, essentially, not bench, but not start, if you will, Yousef Nurkic and Bradley Beal. So tell me what you discussed a little bit about that video and tell me what your thoughts are on Mike Budenholzer making this decision.
Oh, gosh. First off, great questions there. And I think it's just a step in the right direction, whether that's just improving this team or the step in the right direction of making trades to hopefully improve this team and make a long run headed into the playoffs. You know what I mean? It's either way, it's a step in the right direction. And yes, it's just one game, but we actually won a game and we did it without scoring their bench by like a mile.
Yes.
Absolutely incredible. But yeah, that's pretty much what I said last night in the show when Chris Haynes was the first one to break that news. Sort of shocked me in a way, but not surprising at the same time either. the timing is definitely interesting, and I'm sure we'll talk about the Nurkic side of things later. But it's like I've been saying it all season. Well, not really all season long. I've been saying it as of late. The Suns had to do something, and they did it. Bradley Beal off the bench. He had a fantastic game. And again, man, I mean, I've seen a lot of people talk about it. I've been talking about it. The Suns had to do something, and it's a step in the right direction. Fingers crossed, hopefully.
Yeah, we'll talk about Bradley Beal and how he performed tonight. Definitely somebody who was a key factor in the Suns winning this game. But the decision prior to him coming off of the bench for the first time since 2016, it's something that we've all kind of talked about at one time or another because of the construction of this roster. How having Bradley Beal on the floor is a duplication of Devin Booker, and it's always been that way. And even when we made the trade for him on Father's Day 2023, and you and I got together and with Matthew, and we did a live stream right there when it happened, and we talked about some of the exciting factors, we were still puzzled, or at least I was definitely puzzled, as how the fit was going to occur. And we went through a season last year of positionless basketball, and Devin Booker is going to be point guard sometimes, and sometimes it's going to be Bradley Beal, but it really doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, what last season proved is it didn't work. And this season, they got Tyus Jones. But no matter what happens, Bradley Beal or Devin Booker, when on the court together, one of them is playing out of position. You can want, hope, and dream for positionless basketball all you want. At the end of the day, one of them is still playing out of position. And it's either Devin Booker's playing small forward or point guard, or Bradley Beal's playing, small forward or point guard, when they're both shooting guards. And to your point, Suns Geek, something had to happen because the Suns are they've painted themselves into a corner this season with the way that they've constructed this roster. And there's not a lot of ways out. Trading Bradley Beal would be the easy move. It would appear it's an opportunity to maximize the window that you have with Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. And it allows you to open up some cap space. But with that no trade clause, you don't have a lot of options. So I think the decision by Mike Budenholzer to move Bradley Beal to the bench works on a lot of different levels. It works if he has performances like he did tonight. It works if you're trying to coerce Bradley Beal into waiving his no trade clause in his contract, and go somewhere else. Because pride and ego are real things in the NBA, and having a $50 million player come off the bench is something that might hurt his pride or ego. And I've seen those comments on Bright Side of the Sun and on our post-game podcast where it's like, well, why would you ever have a $50 million guy come off the bench? And it's for all the reasons I just stated. Because he doesn't fit on this team, because he's duplicitous of what Devin Booker is trying to accomplish. And if he's not going to willingly be traded, the only move you have, and this is something I said when I was on the PHNX podcast, is the only leverage you have left is have him come off the bench and see if it's something that he doesn't like or enjoy, right?
Yeah. Real quick, I just want to address a small comment from my guy Metal Mike in the chat. He said, did anyone see Beal's post-game interview? Seemed odd or different. I thought he was actually pretty optimistic in a way. He was saying a lot of good things out there. Maybe he was just saying that for the whole PR, but he was brutally honest. He said the good and the bad of the Phoenix Suns. He said, we're still kind of working out the kinks, but we're clicking. It's not perfect. And he also said, and I specifically quoted this down here, we got to guard. We got to talk and communicate more. So I thought he was actually pretty optimistic. And then again, I don't really know if this answers your question, but you are absolutely right. Bradley Beal coming off of the bench works if he has games like he did tonight. He was absolutely fantastic. He had 14 points in the third quarter or something like that. 7 for 10, I believe. He just looked like he had an extra spring in his step, if you will. But he looked absolutely fantastic. And I'm sure we're going to talk about it later, but Ryan Dunn and also Gadara also contributed to that. And it's interesting too, because we obviously got off to a very slow start. This was a really strange game from both teams. What was the halftime score, 49-45?
Yeah, it was a very, very strange one.
Very strange game, but I was like, and you're going to hear me say a lot oh, it's only just one game. It's just 2 games. It's just 3 games. But I was like, I'm trying not to overreact at halftime because it's the first game of bringing Bradley Beal and Yousef Nurkic off the bench. Like, you do got to kind of work out the kinks. But it was that third quarter, man, where we just had lockdown defense. We were hitting shots, and a lot of that was fueled by Bradley Beal, who was absolutely fantastic. So I don't really know if that answers your question. I think we just need to give this time, Suns fans. But hey, we actually won a game. That's all that matters.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the end all be all. Is ticks in the win column are what matters right now. And again, the fact that we made, and by we I mean Mike Budenholzer and the organization made a decision
we
to have Bradley Beal. I hope that we pushed him there by I consistently am tweeting out just like all these negative statistics about Bradley Beal. I'm like, hopefully they see this and go, what the fuck, man? He's got the worst plus minus on the team. He doesn't play well with Devin Booker. They're combined negative 92 on the season. Like, this just isn't working this season. So having him make this transition to the bench is something that, like you said, it's going to take time. And there's going to be an adjustment. It's unfortunate that adjustment is coming at like the 34th game of the season.
Yep.
When you're already so far behind. I wish it was something that this team had done quite some time ago. We've talked about them doing it quite some time ago, but at the end of the day, they didn't. And one of the things that Chris Haynes said when he broke that news that Bradley Beal and Yousef Nurkic would be going to the bench is there's also tension in that locker room. I'm told certain players are unsure of their roles and frustrated about how they're being used. So this situation will be something to monitor moving forward. And we as Suns fans will be highly tuned into how this progresses, because obviously coming off of a good night like tonight, you're not going to get any incendiary comments. You're not going to see a lot of frustration. The experiment on night one worked, and it was led because of the efforts of Bradley Beal.
And she said, you're not the only one, but you're the best, Bradley. Bo, bo.
All right, to SunsGeek's point, great game by Bradley Beal. Led the team in scoring coming off the bench. Still played 29 minutes, almost 30 minutes played off the bench, 10 of 15 from the field and 3 of 6 from beyond the arc. He had 25 points. He had 5 assists. He had 3 rebounds. He had 0 turnovers. He had a block shot and a steal. As you mentioned, that third quarter alone, 14 points, which nearly matched our output in the first quarter. As a team, we scored 16 points. I mean, the Suns just could not shoot to start this game. But in that third quarter, Bradley Beal, 5 of 6 from the field, 2 of 3 from beyond the arc, 14 points, as you mentioned. So we talk about how this is going to take time and adjustment needs to occur. What adjustment does Bradley Beal need to make mentally to be a productive player like he was tonight? And what adjustment do you feel he made tonight to be so impactful?
I'm going to kind of answer both questions with the same answer. And I know this is like the most cliche thing I'm going to say in the book, but I really mean it. Just be aggressive and just give what the defense or take what the defense gives you, if you will. And I know that sounds so cliche, but it seemed like every time Bradley Beal touched that ball in the third quarter, the ball was pretty much going in. We're talking corner threes, driving to the rim and scoring, a couple middies here and there. That's what the Sixers defense gave him, so he took advantage of it. And like I said, he just kind of seemed like he had a little bit more of a spring in his step. And I don't know if that's just because at times Booker or KD were on the bench. Sometimes he was out there with both of them, which I'll talk about that a little later. There's kind of some weird lineups tonight. That's going to happen. Again,
100%.
Night one of this experiment. But still, like, either way, when he was out there, it seemed like the ball was going in that third quarter. So again, I know it's cliche analysis here, but just be more aggressive and just attack, because that's the Bradley Beal that we saw. And hopefully going forward, he has that mindset and mentality. And a lot of things that I've heard this season is like, oh, when we give Yousef Nurkic confidence, when we give this player confidence, like they perform better. Maybe it really is something like, hey, like Mike Budenholzer and all them and Kevin Durant, they need to give Bradley Beal more confidence. Well, him coming off of the bench and leading whatever lineup is out there, maybe that is what Bradley Beal needs.
Yeah, my first note on Bradley Beal in this one is he looked more aggressive.
Yep.
And I think part of that, you have to think of the mentality of the build of this team. Bradley Beal has come in here as somebody who was the primary scorer for a Washington Wizards team for 11 seasons. He comes here as the tertiary option and the tertiary scoring option for this team behind Kevin Durant, Devin Booker. And when you start along those players, you're trying to adjust your game to who they are and be the best version of yourself within the confines of what this team is and how it's built. When he's coming in off the bench, it was a rotation where Booker's coming out. So he's going to play at his natural position, shocker, Booker could have played good at his natural position. He's going to hit a fucking shot, and we'll get to him later. But Beal comes in his natural position. He's playing against the second team Sixers, and that's something to monitor going forward with this experiment with Bradley Beal coming off the bench, which is something I've been pounding the table saying for a season and a half. I was saying it this time last year. That you have him coming off the bench because it's going to change the pace. It's going to keep that constant scoring threat from the perimeter, from all three levels, because Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, not so much from beyond the arc, but Devin Booker's a 3-level scorer as well. It's going to keep that constant threat. And whoever's coming in off the bench is going to benefit from playing against second-team players. And sure enough, Bradley Beal comes in. He's aggressive. He's hitting his spots, and he's just playing with that fervor that he was known for possessing while playing with the Wizards. And something that we've seen very, very few flashes of since he's come to Phoenix. There's been a couple games along the way where Bradley Beal has been that aggressive, but at the same time, that in control. Because Beal, when he's aggressive but not in control, is a train wreck of a player, looks like he's going to get injured on every play, and isn't productive for himself or the team. Tonight, there was a controlled aggression in which he played with that allowed him to be as successful as he was, and it built upon itself as the game progressed. That confidence that you mentioned, that all players need to be successful, grew upon itself, and he started playing with a semblance of joy. Now, is this an on-court thing, and there's a lot of things happening behind the scenes that are going to be, picked apart and quotes used? There's a lot of drama behind the scenes with the Suns, but on the court tonight, the theory worked.
Yeah, I'm not trying to rain on Bradley Beal's parade. I'm super happy that
you
he had
rain away, SunsGeek.
I'm super happy that he had a great game, but I really do believe the reports that we've been hearing about that there is, quote, tension in the locker room, and Bradley Beal is confused by his role. Like that. I mean, if our record alone doesn't prove that, you know what I mean, then I don't know what will. But again, Bradley Beal had a great game today. I don't know if I can really add on to everything you just said because you just worded it so perfectly. But again, Suns fans, that report came out for a reason, that there's, quote, tension in the locker room, and guys, or Bradley Beal in this point, is, confused about his role. That's a real thing. So we're just going to have to see, though, again, just one game of him coming off of the bench, but so far it works. And we're just going to have to see what happens tomorrow when we play, as you like to say it, the Horny Hornets.
Yeah, the Horny Hornets tomorrow. And again, a back-to-back. And, the Suns are one of those teams that when they start to feel themselves, they're quickly reminded that there's no feeling yourself unless you're the Horny Hornets. And then it's just inappropriate. But, to kind of put a bow on the Beal conversation, I will say, to echo your point, one night doesn't solve anything. Feel good, Suns fans. I know I will.
We won.
It sucks that it's a back-to-back because you don't get any time to enjoy it because tomorrow they play. It's like, why can't we win a game right before we had 3 days off? Just have 3 days of me writing nice articles on Bright Side of the Sun, not just incendiary blasting the Suns articles. I swear I'll probably get my credentials canceled because they're reading it like, dude, you need to stop, dude. Like, settle down over there, Voida. You're ridiculous. But looking at other aspects of this, obviously the other component is Yousef Nurkic going to the bench.
Nurk. Delicious definition make them boys go crazy.
Oh. Now, Yousef Nurkic going to the bench is a little bit of a different move, in my opinion, because as I mentioned with Bradley Beal, there's a lot of different angles that can occur from there. As I mentioned, the on-court ability of having him play in his natural position and abusing second-team opposing shooting guards is something that's beneficial if you're trying to hold him hostage or utilize the little leverage you have and be like, hey, man, welcome to Phoenix, dude. You're coming off the bench. And that's something that affects him to where he wants to trade his no-trade clause and try to go elsewhere. There's that aspect. But none of those really exist with Yousef Nurkic because, one, he's an $18 million a year center who's going to get paid like $19.1 or $19.2 next year. And then he's an unrestricted free agent. And no one wants him in any capacity. So if you're trying to utilize moving him to the bench as a leverage standpoint, so he's like, God, just trade me. Like, it doesn't matter. You've been trying to trade him for all of summer, the majority of the front end of the season until last week when there was an announcement that they weren't trying to trade him, which is like, no, you're not trying to not trade him. Nobody wants him. So you just have to kind of say that. So I don't understand the leverage standpoint of it. So it must clearly be a basketball thing. It must be that Mason Plumlee makes more sense with this starting the other starting four, which are Devin Booker, Tyus Jones, Ryan Dunn, and Kevin Durant. Why do you think Mike Budenholzer's pushing Yousef Nurkic to the bench? Because despite what it says on Twitter, I don't think he's a horrible player.
No, I mean, if you guys know me and you watch a lot of my shows, and I've been on this podcast plenty of times, for the most part, prior up to like midway through this season, I was a Nurk stan. Now I've lost hope as of late because he proved me wrong. Like, he has been pretty terrible this season, but he hasn't been as bad as Suns fans like him or make him out to be. And speaking of that, I kind of want to read a quote that I read on Bright Side of the Sun that I think you might have wrote. I believe it was you, and I absolutely love the way you wrote it. Some folks want to throw him under the bus every time the Suns trip over their own feet. And sure, he's a factor, but to label him as the primary reason for Phoenix's struggles is an oversimplification. He's certainly not living up to the hype, which is why I said, like, I kind of, stopped being a stan midway through the season.
Yes.
But to say that he's the root cause of all this mess, not so fast. I think that sums up Yousef Nurkic's season right there. But to kind of get to your question here before I steer off to the other lane way too far is – I think, again, and I know I'm Mr. Cliche tonight, but it's true that we had to do something. And I kind of wonder if this was more of like a few players that said, hey, maybe we should try Mason Plumlee for right now. Just kind of switch. I wonder if this wasn't just a Mike Budenholzer decision. You know what I mean? I wonder if Mike Budenholzer was maybe talking. And again, I have no sources on this. I have no information on this, but I'm just going to guess. Maybe he went to Kevin Durant. Maybe he went to Devin Booker privately and was like, hey, what should we do about our center position? And maybe some of the players spoke up and say, we should try Mason Plumlee out there. I know a lot of Suns fans want Oso Iguodaro to start, and I know we're going to talk about him later, but I'm like, in this case, you got to kind of go with experience, in my opinion. But I will say, maybe Nurkic coming off of the bench won't be permanent. I don't know. I'm just saying.
Yeah, and perhaps it's an effort for the organization to soften the blow for Bradley Beal. Like, hey, man, you're not the only starter who's going to the bench. And I see the comments, and I see how people are, Nurk is awful.
He's the worst center in the league. Like, shut up, guys.
He is bad. DeAndre Ayton is better than him. DeAndre Ayton gets paid twice as much money as he does. I would assume that he's better. And mind you, Portland blew a 22-point lead to the Detroit Pistons tonight. So I wouldn't want to change. I wouldn't want to change shoes with them, if you will. But I understand the frustration with Nurk. One of the challenges. Now you have to remember, a great defensive rebound guy. A great rebounding guy. Derek Coleman says he can't protect the rim, bro. But if you take a look at some of his advanced metrics, he actually has better rim protection as compared to other centers in the league than you might think. Because you watch Nurkic every night, you think this is the worst. If you go and you watch other teams every night, you start to see the lack of rim protection, the lack of size, the lack of rebounding, and some of the aspects that he brings that you don't really realize until the absence of him occurs. Now, big frustration with him is if you take a look at all of the centers who start in the NBA who've played over 20 games, and you look at their field goal percentage, Nurkic is 25th. So his field goal percentage is very low, and that's another factor for people to be frustrated with Yousef Nurkic is his inability to finish around the rim, right? He can't hit layups. He has no hops, and I get it. He's highly unathletic. I'm not advocating for him because of that. I'm just wondering why he's no longer the starting option for this team. Yeah. But at the same time, Mason Plumlee does make a little bit more sense, a little bit more agile, a little bit more fleet of foot, not much, but a little bit more fleet of foot. And the challenge that the Suns have is, in all honesty, we have one of the worst center rotations in the NBA, and that's because of roster construction. When you have Bradley Beal, when you have Devin Booker, and you have Kevin Durant, you're going to have to make sacrifices somewhere. We sacrificed at the point guard position, and we lucked out by getting Tyus Jones, but we don't have that same luck at the center position. And whoever we do get, because a move has to occur for this team, is going to still not check all the boxes. And it just comes down to what boxes are you going to be satisfied with, knowing that the majority of Suns fans are never satisfied with anything unless they check all 5 boxes. Nurkic checks, in my opinion, 3 out of the 5 boxes. And for somebody who is the 18th highest paid center in the league, that's okay for me. But that's me. Other people have different perspectives of what those boxes should be and don't like him because he doesn't either check all the boxes or specific boxes that they like to watch.
Yeah, and I mean that's what a GM looks for is if you check the boxes. So I think in the terms of Nurkic, you got to kind of think that way. And I just think that the Nurkic hate is just way too high. And again, that's coming from somebody who was a Nurkic stan, but kind of stopped doing that, throughout this season because he proved me wrong. And that's why he's on the bench currently. But I don't know. Maybe I have a feeling like maybe it won't be a permanent thing. I think Bradley Beal is a temporary permanent thing. You know what I mean? We're just going to have to see, but I don't know. Yousef Nurkic really isn't that bad, you guys. If he was, he'd be like our 11th man off the bench. You know what I mean? Like he's really not as bad as Suns Twitter makes him out to be.
Yeah.
And,
No, I completely agree. And at the same time, it's valid if you don't like him. And I see, some people, God, who said it in there, come on, guys. Don't judge us for hating on Nurk. Clearly, we ain't the only ones who thinks he stinks. Just ask all the other teams. LOL. His stock is in the pooper. 100%. 100%. I completely agree because we can't trade him. Because if he was great or even what some would define as serviceable, yeah, he would be playing for.
That's a word I use, serviceable.
Yeah, because but for me personally, I think what has happened with Nurkic is I've hit this point of acceptance with him. I think that's honestly, what I've come to realize is like, you know what? I accept Yousef Nurkic for who he is as a player. He doesn't overly piss me off. Am I frustrated at times when he plays? Of course, because, I watch basketball and he's not always great. But at the same time, like I've just reached this level of acceptance that the majority of the fan base just hasn't. And that's okay. I'm not, if you guys don't like Nurkic, but I will say this, because again, I see the comments where it's like, he don't protect the rim. All right. Well, I'm going to pull this up real quick. Mm-hmm. This is Yousef Nurkic's interior defense. He's an A- in rim protection, graded out by bballindex.com. Okay. He's in the 80th percentile. His help defensive talent is an A. His post defense is in the 96th percentile. That's an A+. His screener mobile defense and his scrim rim defense are A and B respectively. He's not as bad as you guys think because you're not seeing what other players are doing night in, night out, and how bad they are. Look at Philly tonight. No Joel Embiid, no Andre Drummond, mind you, but both of those players have been spotty, and so that team, because of their constant injuries at their center position, have zero rim protection. And the Suns in the second half took advantage of that. Yep. Now, finishing up on Yousef Nurkic, just to wrap a bow on that conversation, if you will, you take a look at how he performed tonight. And, again, coming off the bench for the first time in quite some time for himself, he only played that can't be right. That's just the third quarter. I was like, what, 5 minutes? No, Yousef Nurkic, 14 minutes, 5 points, 7 rebounds, a couple turnovers.
Yeah.
So the goal in this one for the Phoenix Suns wasn't to have Mason Plumlee and Nurkic. They realized that because that interior presence wasn't there, they had the opportunity to play somebody else who's a little bit smaller at the 5.
Oh. You know what I'm talking about.
Oso Ighodaro. Man, Oso Ighodaro tonight, 21 total minutes played, 4 of 6 from the field, 0 of 1 from beyond the arc. He did have to hoist up a last-second three. I think it was his first three-point attempt of the year, and it did hit the rim. 8 total points for him. He had 6 rebounds, 3 assists, a couple turnovers himself. But Oso Ighodaro, a +6 on the night. He looked fantastic in this game, SunsGeek. Tell me what you saw from Oso Ighodaro.
Oh, my goodness. Even though I said that Mason Plumlee should be starting and then you want to go with experience, this is where I kind of get why fans are like, Oso should be starting. The only reason I say he shouldn't be is just because he's a rookie. That's not really his fault.
Hey, Ryan Dunn's starting.
Yeah, right. Maybe in the future he can start, but not right now. Because again, we're only on game 1 of this experiment. And I'm sure Mike Budenholzer, I referenced this earlier in the podcast, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of weird, wonky lineups out there. But until he can find something that works, it will work. And I believe Oso Ighodaro was a part of that third quarter kind of surge and that defensive surge that really helped win us this game. He was great tonight, man. 2 plays specifically that stood out. Well, I guess it's 3 actually. He forced a turnover. I don't know if it was on Paul George. It might have been on Paul George. Forced a turn. I can't talk. First forced a turnover, excuse me. He had a sneaky sort of reverse move on Kelly Oubre, former Phoenix Sun Kelly Oubre, who, by the way, lit us up tonight.
Yeah, he did.
And then he
Yeah,
had like a
he
roll,
did.
like a rim rolling dunk on the next possession down. Like Oso was fantastic tonight. He must be over the flu because he looked good energy wise, just doing what he does out there, setting hard screens, rolling to the rim, man. I think he was like a receiver on a beautiful pass. I don't know if it was somebody got him like on a beautiful pass and a dunk. It was just nice, man. He had a great game tonight. And, you know, you see the stats in front of you. I believe he had a couple of turnovers and a couple fouls, but who cares? Like, he's a rookie. 21 minutes tonight in the first game where Bradley Beal and Nurkic are coming off of the bench. That's absolutely huge.
Yeah, there's not going to be a ton of games where size is going to work in the favor of the Phoenix Suns, I feel. But when they have those opportunities, you have to seize them. And seize them they did tonight by letting this rookie who is so fundamentally sound and who has been nothing but a steal in the draft. And I love that the Phoenix Suns did the draft gymnastics this past June to trade back, get more draft assets, move up to get him, because he's continually being one of the bright spots in a season that's been kind of dark. Both him and Ryan Dunn, who we'll talk about momentarily. But seeing Oso Ighodaro play the way that he did, taking advantage of their lack of size in the interior and utilizing his fundamental skill set and being just a great rim runner, something that this team doesn't have. They don't have any really solid rim runners outside of Oso Ighodaro. And seeing the connectivity that he's going to continue to develop, you have to seize every chance that you can. And, you know, like Juan Carlos says in the chat, Oso was awesome day, high IQ player. Absolutely love that. John Tran, yes, KOC, formerly of the Ringer, said he's the best center we have. And I agree. I honestly do agree with that. It's unfortunate that he's just a little too small to be a modern NBA center.
And he's a rookie.
And he's a rookie. I mean, that's the other side of it. But even from that standpoint, if we were looking at him going, hey, that could be our future starting center, the answer is going to be no. He doesn't have the girth necessary to take on the Jokic's, the Embiid's, you know, the Ivica Zubac's, the Jonas Valanciunas', the Yousef Nurkic when he's playing for another team. Like soon, he's not going to have the ability to do that. But he's definitely somebody who you can bring in there, and from a change of pace standpoint, you're not losing much when he comes in.
Yeah, and I mean they're you know, some teams really do go off small ball too, so that's when Oso can be very serviceable.
Yes,
clearly the Sixers were doing small ball tonight. And by the way, I want to give a shout out to my boy Philly Take with RB, who does great content covering the Sixers and the Eagles. He had a tweet that reminded me of so many Suns fans. He said, and I quote, "Here's an idea. Put a center in the game who will defend." I love that. I was like, that sounds like Suns fans, man. I retweeted that so fast, but it just reminded me of that. And like, you know, obviously no Embiid tonight, no Andre Drummond, so they had to go small ball. But clearly their center position tonight was really bad. But yeah, Oso was great, man. And you know, I keep picking on him because he's a rookie, but I also want to encourage him because of that, because he's going to continue to learn. He's going to continue to grow. And you're learning from some of the best players like Kevin Durant and Devin Booker and all of them. And even though our center, you know, lineup right now is bad, you're still learning from veterans like Yousef Nurkic and Mason Plumlee. So this guy can only continue to grow, man.
That's why I wish so much, because Nurkic and Mason Plumlee both have size, although obviously Nurkic has more size. If there's any world where we can go and get a Nick Richards or a Nick Claxton or one of those guys, he's going to give the Suns so much more flexibility, because to your point, bringing in Oso gives a wrinkle to this offense and defense, because he is a good defender too. Like, he's a plus defender, as you mentioned, turnovers. And so having the ability to put him in for stretches just to throw a wrinkle at the opposing defense is beneficial. And that's the challenge with Nurkic and Mason Plumlee, is they're somewhat like Bradley Beal and Devin Booker starting, where it's a duplication of the same guy. You kind of have that in your center rotation. So it'd be nice to have a center who has that rim running ability, a little bit more size and a little bit more athleticism to kind of to bridge the gap between Nurkic and Oso, or Mason and Oso. And time will tell. He's a rookie, but he's got a lot of great foundational skills, and to see them on display is something that's a pleasure to watch night in, night out. Like I said, one of the few bright spots that we've continually seen throughout the season. And another one of those bright spots, dude, Ryan Dunn. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. So obviously, with Bradley Beal going to the bench, Devin Booker slots back in at the 2 where he should be, and the 3 is a perfect 3. A guy who we drafted, and he too is a rookie, but a lot of upside and promise, and he continues to show it. Ryan Dunn, great tonight. 6 of 11 from the field, 3 of 6 from beyond the arc, 15 points, 4 rebounds, had 1 assist, no steals, no blocks, but amazing defense on Paul George. And putting him on the point of attack has been something that's been successful. And if this experiment continues with Beal coming off the bench, Ryan Dunn's going to benefit not only from getting that playing time, but getting that experience along the way. And we get to watch him develop in front of our eyes. This was a great offensive night from him. This was a great defensive night from him as well, SunsGeek.
Absolutely. This reminded me of the Ryan Dunn that we saw early, like in the preseason and early in this regular season. You know, when we were actually, winning games. I don't know if you remember that.
I've heard.
Yeah.
It's like clouds in Arizona. You remember them, but you don't like, you remember what they look like, but you don't remember what they actually feel like.
Exactly. Yeah. Like it reminded me of that. Like Ryan Dunn looks so confident today. And maybe that's just because we really needed a win. But you mentioned it, man. It wasn't just the defense. Like it was the offense out there. Now, statistically, him and Paul George had the better stats. But Ryan Dunn outplayed Paul George today. And he just did it by playing with his great defense and being confident in taking those threes. 3 for 6 tonight. There were a couple times they left him wide open. He could have made the pass, but he dribbled, took his time, pop, shot, make. It was beautiful, man. He had a great game tonight. And him just having that confidence in the starting lineup is absolutely huge going forward. Ryan Dunn, man, could be a very great player for the Phoenix Suns for years to come, man.
Yeah, you take a look at Paul George. He was 5 of 18 from the field, 13 total points, a -8 on the game. And you can't you don't attribute all of that to Ryan Dunn because there's switchability and things of that nature. Yep. But Paul George is paid $40 million a year, and Ryan Dunn's, a rookie. So having him get on him, it was fantastic. Juan Carlos, I love this comment. Ryan Dunn with a Scottie Pippen kind of game today. Yes, I love it. I love it.
Both ways.
And Saul, imagine if we kept Kamara.
Oh, God.
Yeah, but I'll tell you this, and this is
one thing. Stop?
Yeah. One thing we have to remember about Toumani Camara, not a great offensive player, even in Portland where he's getting all the opportunity to do so. He's not playing that great. So,
and he's playing for the Portland Trailblazers, who stink.
Yeah, they're not good.
But I was giving crap to Suns fans last night on my show about Toumani Camara. Let it go, Suns fans. Let it go.
Because somewhere else we'd have to sacrifice, right? Like, where does Toumani Camara fit in? But, okay, I digress. We're not going to have the Toumani Camara conversation now. We can have a conversation about some failed expectations tonight.
Allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is
Big Dick Booker.
Yeah, this was like a medium-sized or probably small-sized Dick Booker tonight. I mean, he was just atrocious tonight. 3 of 16 from the field, 1 of 5 from beyond the arc. He had 10 points. He did have 10 assists. He did help in that capacity. 3 turnovers, so a 3.3 assist to turnover ratio. A couple steals in there, but just an off shooting night. Absolutely horrible for Devin Booker. And our good friend, So Says Jay, from the Fanning the Flames podcast, tweeted out something that was very interesting. He goes, that first half was the 3rd time in Devin Booker's career he's gone 1 of 10 from the field in a half. And it's the 2nd time it's happened in a week. Now, I know you talked about a little bit on the last podcast, the potential for Devin Booker trying to play through an injury at this point. Do you think that's true? And do you think it's affecting him? Because if so, it would make sense.
Let me just start off again by saying this. I have no sources. I have no information. I will be the first to admit that. But it has to be something, right? Because how come I keep on saying that? I was saying that earlier in the year. Is Devin Booker playing through some injury that we don't know about? Or is something going on that we don't know about? Or is it just a really weird, cold stretch? I mean, Devin Booker, I think, missed 2 free throws tonight back to back. That rarely happens. And great tweet, by the way, by So Says Jay. I knew right when you said that was the tweet you were talking about. So shout out to So Says Jay of Fanning the Flames podcast. But man, I don't know what's going on with Devin Booker, man, because you can only blame good defense for so long. You know what I mean? So Devin Booker's got to get out of this funk, man. I don't know what is going on. Even if it is like an injury, how long can we really blame this quote injury that for some reason I have like a gut feeling about for some reason? I don't know what's going on with Devin Booker, man. I mean, there were a few times he would get like back-to-back baskets, but it didn't really feel like it. It was just a weird game, man. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I would say it looks like he has an injury if his shots are it's bad shot selection or something looks off. And part of me says yes. Part of me when I watch him play is when you see him getting stuck a lot, the explosiveness that Devin Booker has, and he's not a highly explosive player. So if he's compromised in any capacity, he's not going to blow by anybody. That's not who he is to begin with. He's a finesse guy who can get to his spots, and then he has a dagger when he shoots. And a lot of his shots, it'll be interesting to look at the advanced metrics, but I feel a lot of his shots were wide open, SunsGeek. And he was just missing them. And there are such things as off nights, as So Says Jay tweet said. It's unfortunate it's happened twice in the week. I don't think I'm at the point right now to recognize it as a trend. I want to continue to watch and monitor, because I had 3 more of those shots gone in the first half, this team would have looked amazing, because all of the Mike Budenholzer levers that he's pulled would have come to fruition, where Booker's going off, and then next thing you know, Beal's coming in, he's going off, and it's just this back and forth between them two, never on the floor at the same time, but constantly creating pressure on the opposition with their scoring abilities. But his shot was just a little bit off. So I'm not overly worried about his shot, but I see him getting stuck. I see him running into double teams and then stopping his dribble. And I think that that's where the frustration lies, where he's just not processing things right now. It's almost like I feel like it's more mental than it is physical at this point, where he's running into a double team, and instead of recognizing the double team's coming and trying to get away from it or passing out of it, he just kind of stops and he looks around and is like, oh shit, it's almost like this Eric Bledsoe standpoint, right? Where Eric Bledsoe used to dribble into things, and then he goes, oh man, what do I do now? And Booker's kind of there. So I feel like it's almost a mental funk he's in more than a physical funk. That's my observations.
As Devin Booker said after that Pacers game, our output is ugly right now. And even though we won tonight, Devin Booker's output and play is ugly right now. I don't know how to put it, man. I can't really analyze it, but when you said Eric Bledsoe, I had so many flashbacks to him just like killing his dribble, stopping, and just the offense getting so lost after
and then
that.
Turning it over. And then
I got like scared for a minute. I was like, whoa, we back in like 2015 or whatever years those was. I got scared, man.
He's like, I don't want to be here.
Right.
One thing that I noticed at the end of this game, and there's so much made about Bradley Beal coming off the bench. So much is made about that. And there's something that I've been saying throughout the time that I've been saying Beal needs to come off the bench is it's not about how you start, it's about how you finish, in all honesty. And shout out to my buddy Joe Casillas. It's been fun watching 90% of Suns podcasters backtrack from their Beal will never come off the bench BS. Yeah, I've been saying that shit for a year. It's always about how you finish. And who did they finish with tonight? They finished with Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, and the 2 rookies. And also, now granted, that's because of the
lineup change
and who they're playing against, and the fact that the Suns won the battle in the paint, which is something they very rarely do, but they outscored Philadelphia 40-34 in the paint tonight.
Ooh.
But what I'm taking from tonight, and the one glimmer of hope that we've had all season, youth is a good thing. Youth is a good thing. You saw it when Ryan Dunn was locking up Paul George. His tenacity is constant because he's youthful, because he has the energy to do so. So much of the challenges that this Phoenix Suns team has faced up to this point in the season is the fact that because they're the oldest or second oldest team in the NBA, you can't keep up the effort all night long because you just don't have the energy. But when you have that injection of Ryan Dunn and you got Oso Ighodaro closing the game, and you have this injection of youth and energy, it slows down opposing teams. It slows down the Paul Georges of the world. You see Tyrese Maxey, the guy's just done nonstop, right? Just nonstop. So it's a good thing to see. What did you think about the Suns ending with that lineup, ending with Bradley Beal? Because again, it matters, right? Not necessarily who you start, who you finish with.
And that's kind of why I referenced earlier in the show. I was like, I wasn't really panicking at halftime because first off, both teams were shooting bad. We can pick on the Suns all we want, but the Sixers were shooting just as bad. But you're absolutely right. It depends on who you finish with. And I even tweeted out one point in the game, I was like, the Suns' original starting lineup is back in the game. You know what I mean? Because again, you got to kind of figure it out. You got to see what works. But the fact that they finished with the lineup that they did, especially with the youth movement sprinkled in there, was absolutely key. And I mean, if you've ever played basketball, like on a team or even just like at the park with a bunch of friends, you kind of want to go with like the quote hot hands or guys that are contributing out there. And I think that's what Mike Budenholzer did tonight, and it worked.
100%. And again, a quality win, a 10-point win for the Suns. I did spend a little time in Philly tonight. I didn't go as Batman. I just went as myself. I said, fuck it. You know, I'm going as me. I'm not dressing up in disguise.
Did you get a cheesesteak?
I'm not. Heck yeah, I did. Heck yeah. But they didn't give it to me because I was wearing Suns gear. And I'm like, okay, if that's my penance, then that's my penance. But the good old subreddit stakeout.
The Suns Jam Session subreddit stakeout.
Right. Some good comments in this one, considering the Suns started horribly. For those of you who didn't watch the game, you didn't have to suffer through watching the Suns score 16 points in the first quarter. It was their second lowest first quarter point total of the season. The only other time they scored that few was the 14 points they scored against the Oklahoma City Thunder in that game where no one could score. But in that first quarter, 2 of 6 from beyond the arc, 5 of 19. They shot 26%. They were down 23-16. So after all that horrible offense, Philly couldn't score either. But that's how it started. And that made for some good comments in the subreddit stakeout. Wow, the Suns are doo-doo. That was a good one. Here's another one. The Suns being this bad defies logic. Even with Beal not being what he used to be, this team should still win 45 games every season. Agreed, and we're on a pace right now for I think 38 wins. So we still got some.
Only 48 games left.
Yeah, not good. Suns really play zero defense. This should be high. This should be a high-scoring game for our starters. The Suns have zero defensive identity. The Suns are tragic. The Suns are a perfect example of why you don't build a team like you're playing 2K. People ask for 90s basketball back, so the Suns and Sixers obliged. Because to your point a little bit earlier in that first half, it was 46-42. And then it changed a little bit in the second half. The Suns, who had 42 points in the first half, scored 36 points in the third quarter, 31 in the fourth. So 2 stellar quarters back to back. Just a great second half. And that's when they started turning on each other. And they're very upset with multiple players. They were dogging on Tyrese Maxey throughout and how he's a ball hog. And if Embiid's not out there, then Maxey just tries to take over, and he doesn't play well. And there's an issue there. And Maxey, ultimately at the end of the game led them in scoring. He had 31, but his 11 of 25 from the field. He was 6 of 14 from deep. So a lot of inefficiencies to get there. But the Paul George comments are always great. Sixers signed a more expensive Tobias Harris.
And trust me, because again, my guy Philly take with RB, Romp 2.0. So I know so many Sixers fans who are content creators, they hated Tobias Harris. Thank the Nurkic
they did.
Think the Nurkic hate, but triple that.
It's because they paid him so much.
Yeah, exactly. If it weren't for that, I don't think they would have hated him so much.
It was like us with Landry Shamet, right?
Yep.
We couldn't stand Landry Shamet, but then the fact that we'd signed him to an extension and paid him $10 million a year, man, fuck this guy.
Also with Bradley Beal too, it's the whole contract thing.
Well, a big thing. That's the big thing with Bradley Beal. It's a no trade clause on a $50 million contract through 2027. It's like this triple whammy of just. Paul George literally makes me sick to my stomach sometimes. Paul George couldn't drive past PJ Tucker with his shoes tied. And then my favorite comment of the night, and let me see if I can do this real quick. It's been a while, so. Whoa, what's that graphic? I'm going last year's graphics here to try to find this, but we haven't played this one in a while. This is a shout out to one of our old buddies
from Indiana University, number 23, Air Gordon.
What I love about that drop is I've had that all last season, and I never once changed it to where he was in a Suns jersey. All those clips, if you watch, are him in the Clippers jersey. But my favorite one of the night was Eric Gordon lost his man for 8 straight possessions. That motherfucker sucks.
The Suns Jam Session subreddit stakeout.
SunsGeek, do you miss Eric Gordon at all?
Yeah, I mean, I won't lie to you guys. I haven't watched many Sixers games, but from what I've seen and heard, Eric Gordon has been a huge disappointment for them, and so is Kyle Lowry. Surprisingly, like I don't know what's going on over there. On paper, they had an excellent offseason on paper, but man, Eric Gordon struggling. Kyle Lowry, I don't know.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, no, I don't.
Yeah. Well, it was funny watching him launch a 27-footer and then lose guys on defense over and over again. I'm like, oh, I remember that guy. It's one of the reasons why last year's expectations fell short, because we thought Eric Gordon was going to be somebody who could shoot threes and be serviceable on defense. He was neither. When he started, he shot threes, but when we needed him to fulfill his role coming off the bench, he just couldn't do it. So.
I was so excited for Eric Gordon.
I was too.
Man.
Dude, did we do a live pod after that one?
God, we did. We were
did.
on it, dude. And we were fooled.
Yeah. Well.
Oh, boy.
All right. Let's see. Any other notes you got on this game?
Where
we hand out some jam stars and go to the next one.
Not necessarily. I'll just say this just one more time. I know I'm sounding a little repetitive. Again, it is just game one of this experiment. There's going to be a lot of weird lineups, especially tomorrow, because it is a back-to-back. Let's kind of give this some time. And I'm not saying if this is successful that Bradley Beal should or shouldn't be traded. You know, that's not up to me, but I'm just saying give this some time. If it leads to some wins, it is a good thing. But yeah, we can give out the jam stars now.
Before I give out the jam star, I have a couple more things. One, Annie was right on the broadcast tonight. Follow your shot.
Yes, please. Everybody on the Suns roster, even if you're not playing, just do it. Seriously, no, she's not. She's 100% right, dude.
Nurkic is on the bench. He goes running in to follow somebody's shot. But seriously, yeah, she said that, and I was just like, that's something. I mean, growing up playing basketball, that was the first thing the coach would always say. It's like, don't stand there and look at it. Follow it. If you're feeling confident, cool. Still follow your shot. I wish I said that a little bit more.
Preach.
And well, let's hand out the jam star, and then I got one more topic to hit before we get out of here tonight. Cool. Jam star. There you go.
Jam star of the game.
This is a reminder to all my fellow jamsters and the Geek Squad. If you're watching this podcast, wherever you're doing it, take a little time out of your day. Just press that little thumbs up button. If you want to get crazy, hit the little subscribe button too. You want to go fucking nuts? Hit the little notification bell. It'll let you know anytime either one of us go live. We truly appreciate it. It's the best way you can support our channels and what we do to provide Suns content as much as we do. It's also an opportunity, if you happen to be watching, in the chat, let us know who your jam star of the game is. SunsGeek, who's your jam star of the game?
I mean, obviously, it's got to be Bradley Beal, right? I mean, he was absolutely fantastic tonight. But you know me, I have to keep this tradition up at this point.
Yes.
I know it defines
who is your honorable mention.
I know it breaks the rules of the jam star of the game, but I have to do it. I'm going to give 2 honorable mentions because they're kind of 2 in 1 here. The rookies, Oso Ighodaro and Ryan Dunn. I love it. Those are my jam stars of the game. But it is Bradley Beal.
Yeah, looking at what the Jamsters and the Geek Squad are saying, they're right there with you. Suns Fever 83 says Jamstar tonight is Beal. CL Oracle, Beal for Jamstar. He earned it with a little rock on. David Yolovich, hit the like button for 2 pod legends. I don't know who they are, but just do it anyway.
Who are those guys?
But yeah, I mean, Saul, Beal for Jamstar with Dunn and KD, honorable mention. We didn't even talk about Kevin Durant, but a great game by him. Great game by him. I love this. I'm using this, John Tran. Manu Ginobili being the 6th man coming off the bench. That's like, I'll write an article titled that.
Do it.
Mary 16, Jamstar's got to go to Beal. The rookies for Rodriguez.
Yes.
Manu Beal from Freddie Miramon. So it's catching on. Bradley, best 6th man in the league, Beal from Juan Carlos. And I'm right there with all of you. I think, real deal, ideal coming off of the bench Beal is what we needed. It's what I've been asking for. Just give it a chance. We gave it a chance. Again, it's a process. There's going to be down games as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But if we have more positive games than down games, then it's a good thing. And we need good right now. We need it. We need to come and do these post-game podcasts and have a little joy and excitement in our hearts instead of another loss. What the fuck? Why can't we do anything? So, but with all that being said, one thing I did want to talk about before we got out of here is talk about a tweet by John Gambadoro.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, as for Beal, the no trade looms large. He could have went to Milwaukee before he ended up in Phoenix, but that was turned down. Have heard he would waive no trade for LA. Doesn't specify if it's the Lakers or the Clippers, but LA, Miami, Denver. But I do believe there are a few others that could ultimately decide work for him. Do you think that Bradley Beal at any point would waive his no trade clause?
I'm so glad we got to talk about this. Even though, again, we're just on game one of this experiment, this is what I was saying. It does not mean that Bradley Beal will not get traded. I still believe that a trade is going to happen. Now, where is he going to get traded? Does that mean Jimmy Butler is going to come to Phoenix? I have no clue. But I do believe that Bradley Beal will get traded. And I'm not just trying to say that because, for the most part, he's had even though statistically he's been pretty good, he has had a sort of a down year, and everybody picks on him because of the contract, yada, yada, yada. Bradley Beal, get Bradley Beal off my team. Bradley Beal this, Bradley Beal that. Let's take a break for a minute, Suns fans. He is still on this team, but because he is now on the bench for the foreseeable future, I do believe this is step one, especially since Gambo, who's been covering Valley sports for years now, probably decades, is reporting this. Brian Windhorst, Mark Stein, I could go on and on. Shams Charania. You don't get all of those people reporting on all this stuff if it's like a bunch of lies. You know what I mean? And again, I have no sources, but it's like we keep hearing things. There's tension in the locker room, stuff like that. I believe a trade is going to happen. What will that trade look like? I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. But stay away from the trade machine, Suns fans. Don't do that. It's like a drug at this point. Don't do that. But before I get too long-winded here, I don't know where Bradley Beal is going to end up, but I do think a trade is coming at some point. And again, when Gambo tweeted that stuff out, man, I was like, this is getting like real now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. When Gambo starts saying things, there's a lot of chatter, and he doesn't miss very often.
Yes.
He doesn't put his information out there unless it's generally correct. It's he's batting pretty high. And to hear that there's teams that he'd consider waiving his no trade clause is news to my ears, in all honesty. And I love seeing games like this, because if you see things like this, if Bradley Beal's buying into this and he's playing well, and we can get out of that contract somehow, like, please. Now, I don't think Denver would want him. I don't know if any of the other teams on his list, like LA and Miami, certainly doesn't want him, or that could have potentially been done. And he could have joined Miami last offseason, but he didn't. I think they don't. But knowing that he could be open to doing it, and to your point, moving him to the bench is the first step. And I'm kind of wrapping up this podcast where I began it, talking about Bradley Beal and this moving him to the bench and what it means. And what it means is it's a step in that direction. It's a step in saying, hey, it's not working. It's not working. We need to find something that does work. If it continues to work and we don't trade him and we can go and win a championship because of his willingness and sacrifice to do so, to say, I'm going to step and play off the bench for periods of the game, knowing that he's most likely going to end the game we'll love him forever, but he's got a long way to go, and this team has a long way to go. And if they have an opportunity to trade him and press reset on this build around Booker and Durant, you need to do that, because that window's closing fast. And that needs to be a priority. And if you punt on this season, if you trade Bradley Beal, if we get to the point where we're so bad and we have to punt on this season, and you're trading Bradley Beal just so you can maximize the window around Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, you fucking do it. You do it every time, and you do it again. You got to maximize your opportunity to build around Booker and Durant, not Beal. Beal was a bad move.
Yes. And I was going to say that too, is like, Bradley Beal had this one like post-practice interview where he was like, oh, they've been putting me in trade rumors for 10 years when I was in Washington. And he said, until they come to me, he's like, I'm playing for the Phoenix Suns. I think we all kind of need to remember that. But again, the fact that so many like insiders who actually have information are reporting, we're hearing this and we're hearing that. And now it's LA, now it's Denver, now it's Milwaukee. Milwaukee was kind of surprising. It's like, I do believe that the writing is on the wall with him waiving his no trade clause.
Yes,
and I want to specifically kind of, and I'm kind of paraphrasing, I think it was Brian Windhorst who said this, and just kind of to remind Suns fans, I mean, heck, I can't predict the future. You can't predict the future. We could all wake up tomorrow and, Jimmy Butler could be traded. Bradley Beal could be traded. But I just want to say something that Brian Windhorst said. There's going to be a lot of talking. There's going to be a lot of like rumors and reports. You know what I mean?
That's the game.
Yeah, exactly. So when he said there's going to be a lot of talking, I truly believe like 28 or 27 teams, if not more, are on the phones calling about Jimmy Butler and maybe even calling about Bradley Beal now. Who knows? Like we're still, even though we're in January and, we're still early in January, I feel like we're kind of still in the early process of this, but I do believe a trade is going to happen soon. I just don't know when.
What are your thoughts on Jimmy Butler? You want him on the Suns?
I'll just say this because we talked a little bit about this with Matthew Lissy, and I've talked about it on my show. But to answer your question, straight and simple, I think I do want him on the Suns, but I don't know if it fixes all of our problems.
Yeah, I'm beyond it now. I've thought about it for too long.
You're over it?
Yeah, it's obviously somebody who, it's like one of those relationships, and we dealt with this, and we'll always deal with this with Kevin Durant, right? Like he signed a max extension and instantly wanted out. Yep. Bradley Beal did the same thing, but he just has a no trade clause.
Yep.
Butler's old. And what I talk about today? Youth.
Yep.
Youth is the answer. Butler's not the answer. We don't need another prima donna coming in here, and then we have to sign him to another big deal. And if he's not happy, then we're dealing with that drama. Like we need youth. We need, and I don't know if there's a move that fixes that and gives us that, but we'll see. But I think you go ahead, please.
I was just going to say one final thing, and I talked about this passionately yesterday on my live show. And this is just my personal thinking here. In the very slim chance that the Phoenix Suns actually press the rebuild button or the blow it all up button, they're not going to do it without going to Devin Booker and Kevin Durant first. I wanted all the Jamsters to hear me say that. You go to Kevin Durant and Devin Booker first and you say, hey, clearly this failed. Clearly this is not working. Is it okay if we go in a different direction? I'm just saying, Suns fans, you don't just blow it up in the middle of the season. They're not going to do that. And real quick, one final thing on the Jimmy Butler thing. I kind of feel like he would be a really good fit with the Memphis Grizzlies. Maybe that's because I'm biased because I lived there for 4 years. You know what I mean? And the Grizzlies have some passionate fans, by the way. But man, like
that was my tweet the other day. I said, I'm like, let me know where you guys think he's going to go. My thought, I think Memphis is where it makes sense
because they have the assets. I don't know their draft picks, but I'm sure they got way more.
They also have the youth to put around him.
They got the youth, and like there's just something about the way Memphis plays. They've been injured and they're still winning games. Jimmy Butler
against the Suns.
Yeah, right. Jimmy Butler would fit there perfectly. So like even though I was super hyped for Jimmy Butler and I was like trolling a lot on Twitter, I was like, Jimmy Butler's a Sun. Like when I started seeing the Memphis stuff, I was like, that actually makes a lot of sense, man. So that's sort of my Jimmy Butler answer, the short answer anyways.
Well, we'll see. And enjoy the Suns' victory because if you're listening to this podcast tomorrow, we play in less than 12 hours probably.
Yep.
So you don't get a chance. You don't get a chance. So make sure, again, you subscribe, rate, review on the Suns Jam Session channels, on the SunsGeek channel. Again, thank you for supporting the show by showing up and being here. We truly appreciate it. My name is John Voida, managing editor, brightsideofthesun.com. Please go check out my writing. He's Suns Geek. If it has to do with the Phoenix Suns, he's making a video about it, including this one right here. So again, thank you for joining me. And I thank me for joining you. And go home and love your family there.